Right folks, so welcome back to another video. It is new car day. You've probably already seen exactly what it is in the thumbnail and title. Yeah, it's a special old thing this. I've wanted one ever since they came out, but I was only 10 years old at the time, so that was never going to work out. It's probably more of a pedal bike situation at the time. But yeah, this exact spec and colour combination has been in my head all these years. I watched every video review there is and read every magazine article. Without further ado, here's my new car. It's a BMW E60 M5 finished in Interlagos blue. So here we are, E60 M5 finished in Interlagos blue metallic with a silver stun interior. Pretty much the kind of go-to combination in my opinion for an E60 M5. All the review cars were in this spec along with silver stun exterior, but yeah, for me it was always going to be the blue. So it's a 2008 LCI with around 70,000 miles on it, so quite low in the grand scheme of things for a 14-year-old car. I will give you a little tour, but the first thing we need to do is open the bonnet, because that's pretty much the main reason why you buy one of these things. And there we have it, the S85 V10. I mean, this is one of the rare occasions where I don't actually know what to say when describing this car, because it's pretty much something I've been looking at just for ages and just been like, yeah, one day I'm going to experience something like this. But yeah, what a special thing. 5 litres, 507 horsepower, naturally aspirated. It's got 10 individual throttle bodies, which you will see later on in the video. Now, I have had this car for about 2-3 weeks now. My good friend Tej found it for me. I am going to run clips from the day now of when I collected it. And once we're back from that, I will show you a few of the things that we're going to do in today's video. Right, folks, so we're here at Tej Specialist Cars. We've done it again, boss. Found another good car. The last time we were collecting something blue, it was the 130i, which was a bit rougher than this, we could say. It's weird, when this car came out, it was kind of like people split on their sort of opinions of it, but as time goes on, it's aged quite well, hasn't it?
It's because in recent times, everyone's been scared of their preventative maintenance and stuff like that, and all the drivability issues and whatever. But they're actually a lot cheaper now to fix than a lot of other sought after cars.
Yeah, it's a car that's just had a lot of scaremongering. Like, I feel like a lot of the people saying how bad S85s and S65s are usually people who have not owned one. Now, I do understand there are some issues with the car, but a lot of it can be resolved with just looking after it and just doing stuff in advance, which is the plan with this thing. Very good condition as well, this one in particular.
Yeah, really nice car.
Yeah, you can see for yourself in the reflections. It's kind of surprising for me, because I thought I'd get an E60 M5 one day, but I never thought it would look like this. But of course we have got this here, but there are a few other special cars here. So this is your own car, isn't it, Tej?
Yeah, this one's a Japanese import.
Yep.
It's imported from a company called TW Imports.
Right, okay.
It's a one of one with this combination.
Yep.
One of 9 made worldwide in this colour.
We have 2 E39 M5s here. Now, this one is a car you've had for many years, another personal car. And this one here is one that you've just sort of restored almost.
Yeah, so this car was, I brought it with 64,000 miles on the clock.
Very low, yeah.
Had a really glowing service history. It was serviced every single year, regardless of mileage.
Yep.
It had just been painted a few times in the previous owner's ownership. He had the car for 10 years.
Yep.
Had a couple of panels painted randomly. It didn't look as good as it felt to drive.
Yeah.
And the interior on the inside was really, really clean as well. So we've had a full respray on it. Every single trim and rubber has been replaced with brand new genuine ones.
Yeah,
all the arch liners replaced. Underside clean.
I mean, look at that interior. That says it all. Just look from the camera how clean this leather is. And lastly, we have a Corvette ZR1. There really isn't many words to describe what's going on here, to be honest. Whenever I come here, like, I end up just walking past it without realizing what is actually in front of me. What's the power numbers on this?
755 horsepower and 715 foot-pounds of torque.
Jeez.
Which is what, like, just shy of 1,000 newton meters. Probably.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Factory car with that much power. This thing will do 100 to 200 in the low 5s, totally standard.
Yeah, I did 100 to 200 with the roof off in 5.3.
With the roof off, enjoyed the sun. But yeah, folks, that was a nice little tour of the showroom here. There's always different things going on. I'm going to leave Tej's links down below in the description. If you want something special, something a bit more unique, definitely hit him up. I think it's time for us to take this thing home now. We're probably going to get it recovered. Even though the car is stunning, I don't want to risk it until we've done our preventive maintenance. Tej was saying, no, it'll be fine. But, you know, I'm being extra cautious here because it is S85 and I don't want to give any of you guys any excuse to start doubting this great engine again. Right, first cold start of this whole series. E60 MPG. Alright, let's see that Interlagos blue in the sun. Seems to be a collection of blue cars out here, looking very nice. Yeah, that's amazing. What a car. That's a proper mid-2000s combo right there. Definitely need a blue R32. Right, so the car made it back in one piece. It was a bit of an event getting this thing on the back of a recovery truck, namely because of this masterpiece of a gearbox, the SMG3. Either wants to do 0 or 200 miles an hour, there's no in between. But yeah, it's a good bit of fun, that thing, especially in the more ferocious gearbox settings. Yeah, you remember that little button from the Clarkson review, I bet. Now, apart from what I've already discussed, there are a few other little things I just wanted to mention. Now, being an LCI, it has got different headlights and also the taillights as well, which are LED. Just freshens up the car a bit. The interior has got a few changes as well, namely the door cards, and also the buttons around the SMG are orientated a bit different. Also, the center stack there is different as well. This isn't like a crazy individual spec or anything like that. It just had to be Interlagos blue for me. Silverstone interior and aluminium trim. It's all about buying on condition now, and you'd be surprised, there's probably only about 30 of these for sale at the moment, and that's a mix of pre-LCI, LCI and Tourings as well. And I believe there hasn't been an Interlagos blue LCI with Silverstone interior for sale for quite a while now. Now, my plan was always to get one of these towards the end of the year or maybe next year, but I've noticed with the prices of M cars, they're quite unpredictable, let's say. If you've been following the prices of E92 M3s, you'll know that they used to be the cheapest M3s around, and now a good one's like £25,000. It's crazy. And the V10 M5 is kind of the one that has not really had too much of that yet. But in the grand scheme of things, compared to a few years ago and the amount of supply that's left, these have gone up noticeably for a nice car, of which there are very few. See, I didn't fancy missing the boat, so I thought I'd get on board now. Moving back into the engine bay, I can already foresee all the comments about rod bearings and throttle actuators and injectors and all that stuff. I get it, but you've got to sort of remember that this is a V10 engined 5 series that revs to 8,250 RPM, has a 7-speed sequential gearbox. You've got to expect that it's going to have different maintenance builds to a normal 530D. The way it drives is unlike anything I've ever been in. Right, so moving on to the plan I've got with the car now that I've shown you it. I'm not going to spend this whole series just walking around it and saying I've always wanted one and oh, it's so great and all that, you know, soppy stuff. We're done with that now, it's here. So yeah, we need to get cracking with some work. I'm going to try and do as much DIY as possible. That's the main goal with this thing. As you will remember, we done a bunch of stuff on the 335i last year, and that's got an N54, which is one of the most annoying things to work on. Yeah, it's running fine even after my handiwork, which is quite rare, to be honest, because everyone else's 335i's seem to be broken on the internet. Maybe I just got lucky, but hopefully the S85 plays along in a similar manner. Right, so now the introduction's all out of the way, I thought I'd begin on a few essential bits of maintenance. Got it all there laid out on the table. So yeah, the plan is to change out the injectors. These are a big failure point on the S85 now. The issue arises when they start leaking and you essentially hydrolock your engine, and then it's goodbye to your S85. And it's not going to be a great day when that happens, because you're going to have to get a brand new engine. I don't fancy doing that right at the start of the project. My wallet's already looking a bit light after buying this thing. We also have a full set of spark plugs. There wasn't much history in the last sort of 5,000 or 6,000 miles of them being done, but either way I'd like to refresh them. And to go with the injectors, I am going to also refresh the fuel filter. Now you may notice, apart from these few bits over here, there's not a single BMW logo on any of these boxes. Not to worry though, because these are all OEM quality parts. In fact, they are the OEM part. They just come in a different box. And the reason for that is just I'm saving on cost. It really does add up when you times everything by 10. And I'm going to put on the screen how much each of these things cost for the Bosch box item and the BMW item. On the injectors, off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure it was £100 difference per injector. I paid around 38 quid for these. And the ones from BMW are 130 something. So you times that by 10, we're already at around £1,000 there. Spark plugs cost me around £100, so I'm sure there's another saving to be made there. And the fuel filter cost me around £104. So either way, I'm thinking what we'll do, we'll begin on the fuel filter first, which is under the back seat. First things first, you want to disconnect the battery, which is located underneath the boot floor. Next, going to pull up the rear bench, which is just like every other car pretty much. See, there's not even any dirt below the seat as well. This car was definitely looked after. Right, so as you can see, there's two things going on here. On that side, it's the actual fuel pump for the car. And this side, it's the fuel filter. Got 4 nuts here to undo. Look at the state of that. It's so much dustier than all the tutorials I've watched. I think it's going to be worth me just hoovering this up before we get started. We have got this electrical connector, which we're going to take off this fuel line. Okay, it's not much. Right, so now we can actually get the filter out. I'm going to hit this bit here with a screwdriver and a hammer to unlock it. I'm not too worried if it gets damaged because I've got all the new parts anyway, just in case. I have got around 1/4 of a tank of fuel, so it's not crazy in there. Not going to get fuel everywhere. There is obviously a few connectors here. Pretty self-explanatory. You're going to unplug them and pull this thing out. I suppose it helps looking at the one you've bought so you can see exactly how it orientates, but... Okay, so a little comparison here of old versus new. Very first thing you'll notice, it says Bosch on the old fuel filter. As I mentioned earlier, it is the exact same part. It's just not come in the BMW box. Main difference I can see though is that this one's got a blue wire, but the thing looks exactly the same apart from that. You can see some of the fuel that came out does look a bit murky, but then I suppose the whole point is this thing was filtering it. You can see in there, it does look like it's got a bit of a shadow there. So I also have taken out the old O-ring and this plastic kind of clamp. Got new ones. I thought might as well. These 3 things only cost me £17 from the dealership, so well worth doing, and you definitely want to do this when changing the filter anyway. Now, in addition to the filter element, we also have a fuel pressure regulator here that's built into the bottom of it. So if you have got an error code for that, it's probably this. Now, installation of this thing is basically the reverse of what you just saw. It's all exactly the same. Just take your time. Don't break the float when you're putting the new filter in. Take these caps off. And yeah, I'll get that done now off camera because you're probably sick of seeing the back seat anyway. Right, so fuel filter's all done. Now we're looking directly at an S85 V10, bit of a masterpiece, I can't lie. What we need to do though is remove these lovely plenums so we can access the fuel rail. All right, wear the strip off. A few connectors on this side as well. 13mm to just undo these cabin air filters and then pull. There we go. What's the condition of these? Yeah, dirty. Lift straight out. Looks like my electric ratchet is given up because of all that N54 work last year. Will it work? Sort of. Right, so next step, remove both of the airboxes. Loosen these Jubilee clips as well. Undo the metal clamps off the side. Not much dirt in the filter, to be fair. Normally I'm used to finding like half a bird in there or something, but we're all good. Got to remove this tray as well, which has 10mm nuts as well. Of course it would. So this side is pretty much the same, but yeah, I've got the coolant reservoir that we do need to move out the way. It's got 2 bolts there holding it in place. I've got a bit of PTSD with coolant lines, even though I'm sure these are in much better condition than the N54 ones were in. The next thing you want to do is remove this strut brace here, which I believe is all T45s. Comes off as one piece. Next we're going to undo a few different breathers. So we've got one right there on this side, one on this side as well. It's just the usual kind of clamp, and there's a few behind the plenum as well, which are a bit tricky to get to. Crows are very noisy today. Seems like some gang warfare is going on. Bit of a pain, but that one's off now. Second one. 2 breathers at the back are apparently quite fragile, so you got to be careful with them. I've only managed to get the right hand side one off so far. The left one keeps hitting into this little box, which I have moved away from the plenum. But yeah, my only kind of advice with this is to get smaller hands, which I can't exactly do right now. So yeah, I'm going to give it a go, removing the right hand side first. Got to undo these Jubilee clamps through there. You probably can see. Long screwdriver seems to be doing the job. Number 2, there still is a couple of extra other breathers. There's one there that looks like it's got a different type of clamp on it. I don't know how I'm going to get that off, but I'll cross that bridge when I get there. All right, so I had to go quickly get a thinner screwdriver. I thought I had a pretty thin one, but you need a really thin one and pretty long as well to get the back one. One half of the plenum's off. This side that actually says V10 on it. Can you imagine after this if the car doesn't even turn on? Well, at least I've had the opportunity anyway. I realised that this one just pulls off. I thought it was this kind of weird clamp that you have to undo because it's like some kind of crocodile kind of vibe going on, but nah, it just pulls off. Right, people, so after a few hours of struggling, yes, I know you S85 pros are probably thinking, hold on, you could have done that in this amount of time and whatnot, but yeah, it's my first time ever working on this car, and it's the first time I've ever looked at 10 individual throttle bodies. Definitely a sight to behold, that thing, man. Next, I want to do is just cover them all up so nothing falls in there, and we'll proceed with removing the fuel rail on this side. Here's one thing I just want to quickly mention. Yes, I am kind of explaining what I'm doing, but don't take this as a strict DIY. I'm sure there's more qualified S85 videos out there. But yeah, learning as I go along. Right, so electrical connectors all loose. I've kept the little metal clips in my pocket just in case. I don't fancy them dropping into the engine bay. Next thing we need to do is remove these 2 bolts which are holding the fuel rail down. Now next what you need to do is start pulling up on the fuel rail, but make sure you take your time with this and pull up along with each injector rather than just yanking on the rail itself. There's a good chance your injectors are pretty stuck in your engine, so it is going to take some time, because you don't want to have a situation where some of the injectors come up with the rail nice and easy and the others detach from the metal clips and stay stuck in your engine, because you're going to have fuel pouring out from those ones that did, and it's going to go everywhere and potentially in the ports itself, essentially causing an issue that you're trying to avoid by doing this job anyway. Now mine were taking a fair bit of time, they weren't moving anywhere, so I decided to use a screwdriver to help with the prying situation. And just as I was about to celebrate when they finally came out, I noticed the very furthest injector at the back was leaking from the clip at the top. They held on with these little metal sort of U-shaped clips. But anyway, I managed to catch as much fuel as I could. A few drops did go in the engine bay, so I was a bit worried at this point that I'd actually ruined my S85. But I decided to continue with the job because there's not much else you can do. Putting the new injectors in is pretty simple. You just basically detach them once the clip is off, put the new ones in, but make sure to put some silicone spray on the O-rings on the top and bottom. Do that for all 5, and then you basically can start carefully putting it back into the engine, put a bit of equal force on it, make sure you don't scrape anything when you're putting it back in, and yeah, you're pretty much all good to go. And it's the same on the other side. And in terms of the old injectors, I've got them here on the table. So on this side, they look okay. The O-rings and everything all looking intact. They're all Bosch ones, exactly the same as what I put in. But overall, there's not really much to tell from looking at them visually. It would be good to get them tested at some point when I got a bit more time. The next thing I'm going to do is cycle the ignition a couple of times just to get the fuel system primed and make sure there's no leaks around all of the ports, because we don't want to find that out once we've put the plenum back on, and believe me, all of that's a bit of a faff. Number 1, 2, 3. Tell you what, that bonging noise is definitely the stuff of nightmares. Put this tissue down here just so it's a bit more easy to identify. I mean, if the tissue's soaked, it means there was a leak, but looks like we're all good. So now we can move on to the last thing, which is changing out the spark plugs. They're underneath this cover, so we'll get those off, pull the coil packs. Right, so we've got another situation, even though one just finished about 5 minutes ago. This one's a lot more minor. It's just related to the coil packs and removing them efficiently. Now, usually what I use is an extension through the top slot it has, and then you leverage on it and you sort of pop them up. The issue here is whoever's changed the plugs in the past has probably used that method, or maybe not used that method, to remove the coil packs, and has snapped the top lid on one of the sides. It's like that on about 2-3 of them. So that's not too much of an issue. Like, you can just use a bit of force to remove the coil packs, but I don't really want to do that unless I have a replacement set with me right now, which I don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to order some coil packs now. When they arrive, probably the next video, we'll change those along with the plugs then. Right, so sometime later, I've got the whole engine bay back together. Plenums are on. Probably going to have to tidy up a few extra bits. So I can just see that there needs to be addressed. But the main thing is we can turn the car on now. It's working. It's actually working. Oh, mate. I don't even know what to say, folks. Let me just open this so we get some lighting in the cabin. I was so worried about that little bit of fuel that dripped in. Yeah. I think we're in the clear. Right, so there we go. First bit of maintenance done. I don't have to worry about it hydrolocking itself. Obviously the next step is to get the rod bearings done before we can fully enjoy this thing. But yeah, folks, without further ado, I think this is a good place to end today's video. We've covered a fair bit in this introduction. If you enjoyed it, drop a like on it. Also subscribe as well, as I mentioned. And hopefully in the next video we'll dive even deeper into the S85, and then we'll eventually get a nice first drive on the thing. Quite looking forward to getting some V10 noise on camera. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one in a few days time.